This happened a long time ago, but it has always bothered me. I am sure somebody has wondered what happened to this dude. I want to tell the little tiny part of the story in an effort to help solve a possible missing person situation, in case this man had never shown up anywhere ever again. Just maybe somebody will recognize the very general information I do not know about, and that it might help solve a serious event. I am very unclear about the date, and am not even sure of the year. Late or mid 1990s. I am sorry I did not report this somewhere previously. It was unclear where I should go or who to report to in such a situation. It was around 3 p.m. on a Friday, I believe. I was down at the town's motor vehicle department, waiting to have an inspection done on a vehicle, and then get the tags and title to the auto. I parked beside a dude who was about 45 years old. He was tall, white, pale, had no facial hair, and may have had a receding hairline and light hair. We were both waiting for a long time because it was so busy that day. The dude slowly started to approach me, and he appeared very nervous and was sweating for more than the weather made a reason for. He made it a point to explain a little about his behavior. He told me that he knew it sounded far-fetched, but that he has been running from town to town, trying to stay hidden from the government's secret military. I have never in my life been in a conversation with anyone about any similar subject. It made it even more uncomfortable for him to say what he was attempting to say. He said that he felt he finally had lost them, and that he was there to get the vehicle tagged to fit in the state of Arizona in his new fictitious name. He was planning to try to stay here for a while now, and make Casa Grande his home for a few months, but he just had to put his new used car in order, saying that he had been with many vehicles, trying to conceal his path if they were following and getting close. He was very nervous telling me this, and I was rather shocked and mostly just listened. I asked him what he was telling me though. He said he was on a mission to break out the truth to the world about UFOs and the fact that they were real, and he could prove it. He said that his mission was to tell as many people as possible and prove it to all he could by showing people the evidence he had stolen from Area 51. He asked if I knew of this place, and at that time I had not. So he explained that this is where the government and military tried to hide the truth about aliens, and the fact is, they are real, and that he wanted me to see this evidence. He stated he stole reels of videotape feed, all showing information and documentation of actual aliens. He asked if I would like to see them. I was quite stunned at what this guy was saying. I told him I would like to see them, but I'm afraid to be alone with him under the potential threat of getting caught by some secret society on his heels, and asked if I could bring somebody with me. He had no problem with that, and said it would be even better because then he would be getting the word out to the two of us. So very strange. I raced to a phone to call my brother and tell him all this stuff, and he insisted on coming with me, though his boss did not like him just leaving work with very little being said. The guy instructed me he was at this one motel I knew of, and that he was in the first room on the south end, and I knew perfectly where this was. We pulled into the motel, and the dude's car was not pulled up all the way into the parking spot, and the rear passenger door was still open. His motel room door had been kicked in, and it was down. I could see the manager of the motel going in the opposite direction from us, and he would not respond to my calling to him. We were out looking around stunned at all that had taken place when we saw in the middle of the parking area sat a white new van. The doors were slamming shut, and the driver was in a hurry to leave. The noise coming from the van, like kicking the panels inside, could be heard. The van kicked up rocks, speeding away from us. My bro told me to get into his truck, and we quickly left. We hardly spoke a word about it. But like I said at the beginning, this has always bothered me. What happened to him? Is anyone looking for him? Did he survive this ordeal? My elder brother was an intelligence analyst for the US Army. He, his wife, and another couple went up onto a hill near the base, White Sands Missile Range Army Base, New Mexico, to observe a full moon one night. Just a casual night out. They witnessed an amazing aerial phenomenon with a blazing pink orb, conducting maneuvers that no human craft could do. Both my brother and his friend were experts in the capacities of all aircraft. After observing the event for some time, the light suddenly stopped and held a stationary position in the sky. All in the car had the certain feeling that it was noting their observations. Then it seemed to surge toward their position, looming large. All of the above was happening at around 10 p.m. at night. The next thing they knew, it was 4 a.m. in the morning, and their car was 100 miles east of their base. It was also in the middle of a harvested wheat or barley field. They got out and walked all around the car. There were no car tracks out to their position in the field. It was just sitting there in the middle as if it had been dropped out of the sky. A period of hysteria struck them all, and they fled the scene and just kept going until they intersected the interstate. That was when they realized how far away they were from the base. Area 51. Hello, Anonymous. My name is Anonymous. For the last 8 years, I worked at a top secret facility under a shadow branch of the military that the presidents did not even know about. I drove a forklift. The place I worked at is known as Area 51. Every day, 4 to 6 days a week, for 8 to 12 hours, depending on the political climate. For nearly 4 years, I worked in what the company called Warehouse 20, even though we only had 4 warehouses. I am here to let you know, once and for all, that there are no recovered alien spacecraft or alien bodies, at least that I know of. Area 51 is a military base / airfield from which a fleet of unknown, unmarked, unofficial stealth bombers can at a moment's notice drop 250,000 pounds of chemical weapons, including nerve gas or biological weapons, on the United States populace. Why? When I was hired, I was briefed on the mission of the facility. The mission was to prevent the spread of an infectious form of insanity known as the deluge. I am telling you this because I have recently discovered that the deluge is bullshit. There is no deluge. The government has had this weird self-destruct program in place since the 1700s. I say government, but really, Groom Lake is, from what I have seen, a completely separate entity from the government, because no one in the government knows it is there. It is funded by the Federal Reserve. We are paid in cash and given special forms that say we are exempt from the IRS. The IRS and the Federal Reserve are in fact both private corporations that, like Area 51, has as much to do with the federal government as Federal Express. Our facilities manager, the guy who is in charge of repairs and construction, recently wanted to reroute some conduit, and in the process of demolishing some walls, a secret vault was discovered. The vault contained a library-like file archive that dated back as far as 1710. There has been a secret organization that seems to have originally been privately funded and run by a branch of some militia that was originally from New York. Over the centuries, because they were so secretive and because there was so much counter-espionage and everything was based on handshakes and nods with little or no paper trail, the militia, having originally been formed to overthrow a potential future tyrannical patriarchy, had morphed and mutated through centuries of backstabbing, misdirection, and paranoia into an organization that seems to have no real direction, and yet possesses nearly infinite resources. Before I started working at Groom Lake, there had been programs to build stealth bombers that could drop chemical and biological weapons that were more advanced than anything the actual government had. I have seen them with my own eyes. They are real, and there are a few hundred of them, fueled and ready to go at the drop of a hat. I could understand the need for a secret stockpile of bio/chemical weapons. I could even understand the need to use them on the American people in some bizarre and unlikely disaster. But what I could not understand, and why I am posting this, is why the alarm to initiate an all-or-nothing attack was not attached to anything. There is no computer, no phone line, no wireless modem, nothing. Every day, we pass by the lights and sirens, praying that they would never go off, and now I have finally realized that they are not wired to anything. I want the madness to stop. The exorbitant waste of hundreds of billions of dollars, the waste of talent, the waste of brilliant engineers and scientists, the constant threat of execution for treason, the circular hierarchy of men in sunglasses and black suits who do nothing but invent work out of thin air, who answer to no one and don't know what they are doing. At some point, those chuckleheads are going to do something that leads to a real cataclysm. They are always working on some new piece of tech, some new computer virus, some new genetically engineered germ, some new kind of delivery system. There is a lot to talk about a contract with soda bottling plants. So much stupidity and insanity. It's been going on forever, and there is zero accountability. I can't report them to anyone, not that anyone will believe me. I don't even know if they could legally put me in prison for what I am telling you. At first, the pension plan sounded great. The healthcare coverage was total and absolute. The perks were also a lot of fun. We carry all kinds of nifty gadgets, some pretty mind-blowing apps on my iPhone. And then there is the pay. I was making 6 figures, tax-free, to drive a goddamn forklift. It's not worth it anymore. I told my supervisor that those files that we found would lead to some kind of mutiny. He told me there have been mutinies before. It is weird how this super secretive, ultra classified organization that isn't even a part of our actual government or military has almost no secrets on the inside. There is nothing that is on a need-to-know basis. Everyone knows everything and everyone sees everything, which is the second most disturbing part about working for Area 51. Sure, some doors are locked, but sometimes they are just left wide open. Guys talking shop in the cafeteria like it is nothing. Hey Bob, we're getting really close to solving the overheating problem on the satellite death ray. How is the build on that virus that cancels everyone's credit cards going? My supervisor tells me the area that one of the district managers bought the controlling shares of the company back in 1985, and then some random trespasser from one of the decoy entrances just walked onto the premises and shot him in the heart with a revolver. After they got rid of both bodies in a bonfire in the middle of the lake, the power vacuum led to a change in management. But of course, the direction or mission of the company has always been the same. Just look busy. Ladies and gentlemen, you would not believe the utter incompetence of our managers. Most of the time, they have this serious, stoic look on their face, like they have the weight of the whole world on their shoulders, tapping away on a computer. But they are just going through the motions, just like everyone else in that place. One of my managers, I'm not really sure what his job exactly is, just sits in his office most of the time, typing up orders for me and the other drivers. But I have also seen him in the hangars, micromanaging the guys, doing the daily inspections on the bombers. Supposedly, he is the one who my supervisor answers to, but I've seen my supervisor giving him orders on many occasions, and this goddamn guy gives a "yes sir, right away sir," like it's his first day. I'll call him Jeff. One day, Jeff gives me a clipboard of orders. I need to rotate some raw materials and boxes and bring some routine supplies onto the trucks that move the supplies to other parts of the facility. Then, in the middle of my shift, he is standing there in the warehouse, just looking like he has nothing to do, and he asks me what I am doing and if I need any help. I nearly lost it. If I had to describe Area 51 in one word, it would be inefficient. It's like the whole purpose of the company is to produce inefficiency. They will spend $250,000 to do all kinds of background checks and investigations into a truck driver to make sure he's not a communist spy. I am not exaggerating. Only for him to fail a drug test after falling asleep at the wheel when they could have gotten some kid in the army to do the same job for half the pay and would have rather died than fail his mission. The way I was hired was also very unnerving. I made a profile on a job finding website. I was already with a temp agency, but they came to my door anyway. The hiring officer shows up one afternoon and offers me a high-paying government job. Of course, I immediately quit the temp agency and took the opportunity. After I found out that there are no aliens that they knew of, they told me that they spent $20,000 following me, studying my internet browsing habits, tapping my phones, going through my garbage, watching the shows I watched, and doing all the same to my mom, dad, and the rest of my immediate family. They even did background checks on every teacher I've ever had since kindergarten, just to make sure I wasn't some kind of potential double agent. Of course, they have an entire wing dedicated to researching potential employees, with several dozen guys in offices and in the field, just to hire someone to drive a forklift, when they could just isolate the different departments from one another, so that no one knows what they are working on, except for the higher-ups. But it became obvious after a few months why that could not work, because the higher-ups do not exist, and the managers are literally making it up as they go along. I am telling you all of this in hopes that there will be some kind of revolution. Of course, everyone I've ever tried to tell either blew it off as a joke or me being crazy, or just ignored it out of fear that they would disappear. I did not tell my best friend, who I've known since I was 8, that I was working at Area 51, but I did tell a total stranger at a diner once. I told him because he told me he had blown the whistle on a company that was illegally dumping toxic waste in China. The story he told me was harrowing. He told me that they went after his family. He told me he had to wear gloves everywhere he went for a while because when he changed his identity, they had started tracking him by his fingerprints. He told me that he couldn't tell me his new name because they might be listening through someone else's cell phone in the diner. When I told the guy my story, he first thought I was mentally ill, and that because he had told such an interesting story that I had somehow tricked myself into thinking I was part of it. He told me he used to work in a mental hospital and saw it happen before. A few weeks after that, I got in trouble with the managers. They held me in a room for hours with one of those one-way mirrors. It was like a movie. I thought they were going to interrogate me or just put a bullet in my brain. After a while, Jeff came in and said that I was going to be given a written warning. Another week later, my supervisor and I was talking about it, and apparently, the guy I told was followed for a while, and then he committed himself to a mental hospital. I'll either have one of their outsourced goons somehow blow my house up and make it look like a gas leak or cut my brake line. Or they'll send me to the unemployment line with a resume that says I worked at Area 51 for 4 years. Most likely, the manager won't know what to do with a guy who seems to have a death wish, yet knows more about the warehouse inventory better than everyone else. They might just give me a demotion or cut my pay. They aren't worried about anyone spilling the beans. A guy who works in the maintenance department spilled the beans a few years ago, before I started working there. He blabbed to every newspaper in Nevada, and he is still there, because no one believed him. His name is Craig. I will tell you his name, because he does not give a shit, nor do I anymore. Craig told me that the only one who would publish his story was a magazine, and they would only publish it in the weird and paranormal section, but only if they were allowed to change some of the details to make the story sound more exciting and less like the plot to that movie Office Space. He said that after he was finished cussing them out, he realized the dial tone was ringing. He realized that the entire rigmarole about under the penalty of treason, minimum 10 years in prison and a $1 million fine, classified under Article 19, Line 4, Subsection B, and all their scary paperwork, it was entirely unnecessary. I don't know who else to tell my story. I have told you the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I have told many people. I may be editorializing a tad bit here and there, but it is exactly as I have stated. You are the only ones who might have the wherewithal to show up on their doorstep with signs and masks. Hopefully you will bring some guns and Molotov cocktails. Be careful. There are plenty of spooks who hang out on 4chan. What you're suggesting, even as part of a story, could be taken the wrong way by certain people. I mistyped. I've actually been working there for 4 years only. 8 years ago, I would have still been in high school. Get you killed? There is virtually no real danger to walking into Area 51, besides the rattlesnakes. The company hires a bunch of mall cops and dresses them in full soldier costumes. They probably couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. I have told you all the most interesting stuff there is. There are planes in Hangar 30 that haven't been maintained since the late 60s because they are obsolete, but the management has no place to put them. They were supposed to carry nukes that would have been dropped on American soil, but the company never made any atomic weapons. There are projects in the works to put satellites into space that could punch holes in the Van Allen belt and allow unfiltered solar radiation through to fry the communications infrastructure and kill thousands of people. Otherwise, it's just like any industrial, tech manufacturing and research plant. The number of people who work there is in the thousands, I think, and there are thousands more workers that the company outsources who work from home. There are a few supercomputers that run an automated fabrication/assembly line of robot arms. Then there's the germ bomb lab, which is the only place that requires any special clearance, which is basically just a key fob for people who have been trained on safety and hazards. What kind of evidence? Every day, we board a plane at a regular commercial airport, but before that, we go through a metal detector, a full body scan, and a pat down for cameras and contraband. The plane lands in a nearby airfield, and then we take shuttle buses to the Groom Lake facilities where there is another layer of full body scans, which are even more sophisticated to make sure that we cannot leave with anything. Not that much of the stuff from there would even be too out of the ordinary. We use commercial computers and commercial equipment. They don't buy any very exotic raw materials. Nothing at the company is very much out of the ordinary, except for maybe the bugs, and it is too much of a risk to the public for me to sneak a sample of them out, even if I could. They don't give us any special IDs or passes. The guards just know our faces. The body scans do the rest. Even before the body scans, I've been told by the more senior employees that their driver's license was sufficient identification. OP's story just gained some legitimacy. The tinfoil hat crowd have been discussing for years the windowless planes that go to and from Area 51. They, of course, thought they were windowless to hide the aliens or some such nonsense. This is so absurd that it would not surprise me if it was true. Like I said earlier, they are just regular security guards. They aren't super elite soldiers. They aren't Jason Bourne clones. They don't have any more special training than the security guard that you see at your local mall. They have better equipment and wear plate body armor and carry fully automatic rifles, and they have cooler surveillance toys to play with, but they are just random guys. I have talked to a bunch of them, and they are all assholes who think they are super elite soldiers because they were chosen, but in reality, the newer ones were just selected at random by a computer. Quite a few have law enforcement and military experiences, but again, so do a lot of the security guards you see standing around in department stores. I know the guards aren't really told to shoot on sight, even though there are warnings that say that they will. Back in the day, the guards definitely would have shot someone for stepping over the line, but now, because of all the tourists, they will just yell at you and jab the barrel of their guns in your face. They will hood you, detain you in a special little jail that they have near one of the decoy entrances, question you, scare you, and tell you that they know where you live and all that jazz, but it is unlikely they will kill you. I've heard of tourists in the 90s at various times stepping past the beyond this point signs and the guards having to swoop in and act like gangsters, but the only time they've ever shot someone is when one guy walked right up to the shuttle bus lot, but that guy was legitimately crazy. I use an iPhone for work sometimes, actually, but it's just to call work or let them know if I'm running late. There are special programs/apps installed on it that allow me to call from anywhere in the world without it being able to be triangulated, except by the security department at Groom Lake, but it has never really been necessary. Cell phone signals are scrambled at Groom Lake, so no chance of live stream, but our smartphones have to be left at the airport anyway. The entire facility is designed to prevent external surveillance. The body scans at the airport that are used for the employees of Groom Lake are way more invasive than the ones for regular travelers. They see into our internal organs and can detect metal objects smaller than the smallest camera. I could not even hide a camera inside my asshole. They even specifically detect components that resemble the components of a camera, so you can't even have a keychain spy cam without them knowing about it. No, there is a separate hangar with a few dozen planes from the 60s that are obsolete. It's sort of like an aviation museum. They don't maintain or inspect those planes. They just keep those bombers there because they have no place to put them, so they just built new hangars. Now and then, they store other items in that hangar so the planes might be moved around and some rust will flake off. There are hundreds of other planes in different hangars underground that are ready to stem the deluge, which will never happen. Hundreds of billions of dollars to prevent something that won't ever happen. And even if it did happen, there is no real functioning alert system to get the pilots into the planes. I guess that now that they know the alarms are basically just for show, they will just say that they need to be fixed or something ridiculous like they usually say. Those pyramids are just big piles of dirt under which they store the barrels of toxic waste. The waste is a result of the manufacturing process of the stealth skin on the planes. aside from stockpiling bio/chemical weapons and stealth bombers. Groom Lake is also one of the largest dumping grounds for toxic waste. Strangely enough, there isn't a higher incidence of cancer than normal among workers. Up until the 90s, they did used to burn the stuff, but the EPA raised a stink about it, so the management changed the policy. It is still stupid though, because there are ways to treat toxic waste so that it is not toxic anymore. Even though it's expensive, they have infinite money. But again, nothing about what they do at Area 51 makes sense. Some of the things that Bob Lazar and John Lear say are real, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. Both of them, in my opinion, are simply con artists. I don't know them personally, I've never met them, and I've never heard anyone mention either of them. I'll ask around on Monday, but I doubt that they are, or have ever been employed by the company. I guess it might be possible that they were hired to create a smokescreen and make the conspiracy theorists look crazy by association, but they are all legitimately crazy or stupid. From my quick research on Bob Lazar, he claims he stole something he called Element 115 from the site. As far as I know, there are no special isotopes being used at Area 51. We manufacture carbon nanotubes, which are toxic and have to be stored in special airtight biohazardous barrels. We have billions of dollars worth of palladium and silver used to make catalytic converters and batteries, and we have some depleted uranium for bullets and armor, but that is as crazy as it gets. Ever heard of a place called S4? That is where Lazar claims to have been employed. Nothing in my mind sticks out. The labs are given names like Lab 10, Lab 12, Lab 90, but I don't know any S prefixes. Of course, I have not been over every square foot of Area 51 yet. I've been working there only for 4 years, and even though it seems like a while, it's such a massive facility, and I am usually very busy that I don't get a chance to explore really. But they don't take big measures to hide things from employees. Like I said earlier, sometimes the doors are locked, sometimes they are wide open. I will ask around on Monday. Those badges are for outsourced contractors. The regulars like me do not carry badges, and they are more so that they can recognize one another, not to get on the plane. There are facial recognition cameras watching the gate, and inside the plane, and at the Area 51 facilities itself. Any badges would be superfluous, and I never said the planes were windowless. Maybe back in the 90s they were windowless, and before that they just flew in military planes. But we do indeed fly in regular commercial jets. Be me, Dad and Uncle, chilling in Glacier National Park 4 years ago. We are part of the Blackfeet tribe, so we kinda do whatever we want because, well, this is our land waddies. Walk around at 10ish. Dad telling stories of when he was a kid playing up here, and he was running around when he saw a tall, hairy man. The tall, hairy man just smiled and walked away. He tells this story to everyone. Deeply believes that Bigfoot is real. Me too. Back to story. Walking around at night, laughing it up, pointing flashlights at everything. Suddenly hear a roar/scream thing. Uncle immediately starts laughing, thinking that people are just trying to scare us. Dad promptly tells him to just shut up and get ready to run. Surprised, because my pops is a big ass Indian. 6'5", 250 pounds at least, start hearing twigs and tree branches snapping very quickly, as if running in our direction. Quickly scan the area with flashlights. See a massive shadow. Screw that. .png. Run like hell. Keep running until we hit Running Eagle Falls. It rained the previous day, so that the water was somewhat high. Screw that. We all jump in and wade through the water. Get on the trails and run back to the car. All cars are gone except ours, and it just so happened to be parked in front of the trail. Get in, turn on the lights, and look again for anything at all. All 3 of us felt like something was watching us. Leave the park and go back home. Quiet ride the whole way back to Browning. I start shaking with fear and adrenaline withdrawal. Fight back the urge to cry, but my eyes get watery anyways. To this day, I don't go in Glacier at nighttime anymore. Nature is really scary. I want to not believe in Bigfoot, but after an experience like that, and being raised by other Indians, insisting that he does exist, I can never ever get rid of the thought out of my head. Every time I recall that event, or tell it, my eyes water up, because that is the only true fear I have ever felt in my life.